So what you're seeing on screen here is Dr. Noam Chomsky's response to an email. Specifically, my email. I sent him an email today, and he responded very quickly, which of course I appreciate him taking the time to respond to me, and I'm very thankful that he did respond to me. Now, the questions that I asked in the email pretty much pertain to the subjects that I discuss on this YouTube channel. And so this is how he answered, and you can see it on the screen here. Past presidents tend to be rehabilitated under the prevailing doctrine that unlike others, we are good, though even the best people make mistakes. Only others commit crimes. That's sometimes called American exceptionalism, but that's an error. It's the common stance of imperial powers, or imperial powers, depending on how you pronounce the word imperial or imperial. There are special cases when huge PR projects accelerate the normal process. Reagan was an extreme example. Kennedy is another. Now I just realized that I had my finger over the mic, so hopefully that all recorded and you can actually hear it when you're watching my YouTube video. For my audience, that is still non-existent, so I hope this channel grows quickly. But a lot to unpack here in Dr. Chomsky's very substantive response. So the second paragraph, obviously huge PR projects that were done for Kennedy and Reagan to rehabilitate the fact that Kennedy used chemical weapons and bombed Vietnamese civilians, put them in concentration camps, did terror campaigns in Colombia, and also tried to overthrow Cuba and did terror campaigns in Cuba, and really just effed around with the Cuban Missile Crisis. And also Kennedy failed to get the Medicare Act passed, and lots of failures, lots of horrible things. And Reagan, first president to be condemned by the international community, Ronald Reagan, cut taxes on the wealthy, destroyed unions in the country, and brought the country back to the days of Herbert Hoover and Calvin Coolidge, essentially. One of the worst presidents ever, Ronald Reagan was. And there were massive, huge public relations projects, PR projects, to accelerate the rehabilitation process for Reagan and Kennedy. And now they're viewed as godlike among Republicans and Democrats and others. Now, let's get back to the first part of this paragraph. Past presidents tend to be rehabilitated under the prevailing doctrine. So yes, past presidents, as we've seen with Obama and Bush, as well as Nixon and Hoover and all those other ones, and Buchanan and Pierce, actually not so much Buchanan, but basically all those guys, they're getting rehabilitated despite their horrendous policies, and that's because it's been a pattern, it's a systemic issue where these horrible war criminals and domestic criminals and all other types of terrible presidents are getting rehabilitated. It's just a pattern that's developed, so by default, another one is going to get rehabilitated pretty soon. And it's under the prevailing doctrine that unlike others, we are good, we are exceptional. And of course, sure, all the people who are dead in Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam and all across the world, like Philippines and everywhere, that's just because some people made mistakes. Like, if someone committed those war crimes to us or to anyone close to us, we would be livid, and we would not consider that just a mistake. So it's ridiculous to say even the best people make mistakes. Like, first of all, they're the worst people, they're not the best people. And mistakes are when you accidentally drop a glass. It's not when you purposefully go and kill a bunch of civilians in order to exploit natural resources or geopolitical control or whatever the case may be. Now, of course, the sentence, only others commit crimes. So yes, basically when the United States commits horrible war crimes, it will turn a blind eye to its own horrible war crimes, and also it will turn a blind eye to horrible war crimes committed by Israel and horrible war crimes committed by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But the United States will be so focused and so livid and clutch its pearls, to borrow a phrase from Kyle Kalinske, clutching pearls, when the Russian Federation or the People's Republic of China do bad things. And they do bad things, to be clear. Russian Federation and People's Republic of China are also imperialists, and they have imperialist ambitions, and they are actively oppressive and also bad people. So as a side note, just because someone is bad does not make someone else good. Just because someone else has really bad policies doesn't mean you should rehabilitate someone else's policies. Like the classic example, just because Trump is bad doesn't mean you should rehabilitate Bush, and just because Bush is bad doesn't mean you should rehabilitate Trump. The same example can be applied to Reagan and Nixon. Just because Nixon is bad doesn't mean you should rehabilitate Reagan. Just because Reagan is bad doesn't mean you should rehabilitate Nixon. They're all bad, and you should be able to say, that one is bad, and so is that one. Just because something else is bad does not make it good by default. It's a very horrible false comparison to make. Now, he goes on to say, the thing that he just said, past presidents all the way to crimes, he says that sometimes, so Noam Chomsky says, that's sometimes called American exceptionalism, but that's an error. So obviously what he means by that is, by saying American exceptionalism, you imply that only the United States has this mindset and this type of thinking, but that's not correct. It is the common stance of imperial powers, or imperial powers, depending on how you pronounce the word. I used to pronounce it imperial, but now starting today, I just started pronouncing it imperial for whatever reason. So whatever, but point is, so other imperial powers, and as I've said, Russian Federation, People's Republic of China, United States of America, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and Israel, all those guys have that kind of thinking as well. Like, when they do it, it's not wrong. When they do it, it's morally unjust because, Israel, they do it because, Zionism, and they think it's their ancestral homeland and they were entitled to it, and so they build the illegal settlements and kick out the Palestinians and totally destroy them and just really abuse and do bad things to the Palestinian people. And we can go through the crimes committed by Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Russian Federation, People's Republic of China, and the United States of America. But the point is, obviously, there's a lot to unpack here in this very substantive 2 paragraphs. And I just unpacked it, and I'm sure there's more to unpack here. And so read this, it's on the screen, you can see it. And again, I want to thank Dr. Noam Chomsky for responding to my email and giving me this very substantive thing to talk about. Very well appreciated.